Hello, hello. This is Zach Spicer with JTNS here in Tennessee. We are talking about accidents, causes, and controls in the month of December for the last of the year of 2022. Get to welcome 2023 here shortly with an underground safety meeting here shortly. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So as we're talking about accidents, well, it's a good thing to actually know what we're talking about, right? An accident is an unfortunate incident that normally occurs unexpectedly, unintentionally, resulting in damage or injury. Of course, nobody ever plans on an accident. If it was planned, then technically it can't be called an accident. But it's something that we deal with every day, not only at work, but just getting to work and getting home and dealing with youngins and everything else. 80 out of 100 accidents are the fault of the person involved. To really stick that home right there, look at that bottom one. Unsafe acts cause 4 times as many accidents and injuries as unsafe conditions. What that means in a nutshell is essentially you are in charge of whether or not you intentionally prioritize something else, like getting the job done, cutting corners, something like that, and you intentionally put yourself 4 times as much in harm's way by cutting corners than you are just being around something that's dangerous. All right, so you have a lot of responsibility here when it comes to this. Of course, unsafe acts would pretty much equal accidents, right? You got to make safety your priority. So not only health and safe, but hopefully you value yourself and value your coworkers, right? Y'all know how it is, especially in this line of work. You spend a whole lot of time with the people at work. In fact, there's a majority of times you spend more time with them than you do with your wife or your youngins or anybody else like that. We have a tendency as a society to count on the electricity always being on. I've heard a story that TVA has a postcard from a fellow back in the 50s, I believe. He wrote a postcard to the local electric department and said, "I have been out of lights for 7 days. If you don't mind, when you get a chance, could you please send somebody out here to look at this?" Well, that tells you right there, 7 days he's been out of power, and then he mailed a postcard in. They've done studies to where within 15 seconds, if you walk into a room and flip a light switch on and nothing happens, your attitude changes within 15 seconds. To be honest with you, that's almost like we've done our job too well, all right? People expect it like breathing nowadays. You can't put that expectation above your safety and above your health, and especially above not only your health, your coworkers' health. Hopefully you don't even understand. I'll be honest with you. Y'all have no idea about what you do and how it affects your family. All right, we'll talk a little bit about that in here in a second. Hopefully nobody here, sitting here listening to this, you're probably sitting here by yourself at your desk listening to it, so you can look around to your left and your right. Hopefully you're not going to stand up and say, I could care less whether or not, Betty Sue over here or Johnny B over here gets hurt. I'm just worried about myself. We have an obligation to hopefully take care of each other out there in our industry, right? We are our brothers and sisters keepers. Now that last little bullet down there, well, what do your actions say? I know y'all have heard it from your granddaddy, or you've heard it from your mama, your daddy, your teacher, somebody like that. Actions speak louder than words. And that's the truth. Something that you consciously will, something that you physically do, has a result, right? The key thing is here is making sure those actions and your decisions that you make lead to the proper outcomes, right? That's the big thing. Of course, things like, do you put guards back on equipment? Use trench boxes. Something as simple as using a seat belt, right? That right there in the wrong kind of setting, in the wrong kind of place, a seat belt might sound like a no big deal, no brainer kind of thing. It takes a quarter of a second to snap it in. but it could have lasting effects. Paraplegic, quadriplegic, death, just getting on that, getting in that interstate, getting on that highway, and somebody hitting you, right? Do you always use your cover up? And hopefully, you're not standing underneath a pole or a transformer when it's up in the air, right? Do you always wear your hard hat? What about your safety glasses? I'll tell you this, a couple years back, the safety glasses, the big thing with them were the pit vipers. Oh man, the pit vipers were so cool. A lot of the pit vipers came with side shields. You had to install the side shields if you wanted them to be ANSI rated safety glasses. Of course, the guys didn't want to do that. They wanted to look cool over being safe. Here's a little nugget of information that you can stick in your back pocket and save this for later. If you have your safety glasses, you can put them on, and you can either take your right or left index finger, and if you can take that finger and put it up through the corner of where your orbital opening is, your eye socket, and the corner of those glasses, if you've got free space to move back and forth and up and down, your glasses are not protecting you the way they should. All right, that's just a little nugget, stick in the back pocket, save it for later. Do you always test and ground? I could care less if you equal potential, if you bracket, if you box. You know, here's how it is. Whatever your company designates, that's what you need to do. Your company has been told by OSHA to look at all the hazards out there and to figure out how to keep you safe. That right there is part of it. If they say bracket grounding is the best way, that's what you get to do. Follow that up. Lockout, tag out, all the things that are involved with keeping you safe all day, every day, right? Hopefully, like we said earlier, you're not going to allow somebody to be in harm's way. And that second bullet right there, that come from my granddad. The moral of a man or a lady is who you are when nobody's watching. If you're only doing the right thing, if you're only worried about throwing that hard hat on or putting those glasses on or putting that FR on, when you know the safety man's rolling up or you know the superintendent's rolling up, you're not doing it for the right reason. I'm telling you right now, if you're only doing that stuff when required, you are not keeping yourself safe. I promise you. All right, so make sure you do the right thing even when nobody's watching. Of course, what do your decisions say? You know, are you going to take the easy way out? Are you going to take the hard way out? Let's see if we can get this little video to play right here. Here we go. Boy, this is not going to feel good. Never wrap it around your hand, right? And that ain't a little fella either. That right there, that's got to be a little bit painful. Now, this is what not to do and what to do. Don't do that, but hey, look there. The fella's got their FR on, or fall protection on. Worked out like a champ, right? That last little piece holding it. That's ingenuity right there, fellas. Ingenuity. Now, what are you going to do? You're up there all by your lonesome on that post. What are you going to do? Now, if anybody's ever actually seen a fire, I mean, that's a decent sized little fire, but to be honest with you, I've seen much, much worse. Oh, Lord. You might as well get ready for a ride on this one. All for a light. All for a light. Boy, this is that big brain thinking right here. I know I'm cutting that, but might as well stand on it. Oh, Lord. This is a coconut, a dehusker or something like that. Could you even fathom what that thing would do to your fingers, your hand, if it grabbed hold of you? Oh, man. So, of course, hopefully you're not cutting any propane or anything like that. But if you are using a torch cutting propane, you probably want to make sure it's empty. Let's make it better. Oh, made it so much better. Now, right here, this isn't a fail. This is actually a win-win right here. You could tell these fellas have worked together for a while. You could tell this old boy right here has done this once or twice. Smooth as silk right there.
Here comes a big stick. We're
going to drown it with acid. We're going to try the big stick theory. He's going to go flying across the...
So trying to drown it
try
with
to kill
water.
the engine with water. And hit the big stick. Okay, now we're going to smother it with a tarp. We've now angered the machine. The machine is now angry. You dumbasses. This is hilarious. Okay, we're going to smother it with tarp.
This is actually going to work, I think.
Oh, there we go. No. Right him in the hole.
Oh, right him, cowboy.
We've now got him in the hole, spin. Oh, ole. 8 seconds. 8 seconds is what we're looking for. He is now blinded and mad.
I can't get you. Oh, this is... This is a huge...
All right. Got to see some videos right there of what not to do kind of situation, right? If you noticed, causes of accidents, taking shortcuts, being overconfident, distractions, ignoring rules, housekeeping, all that. In those videos right there we saw, they all have what we call a common denominator. That common denominator, you. It's exactly what it is. You made those decisions. Now you get to enjoy the consequences, right? This is OSHA's Fatal Fours. If y'all remember what we talked about in the month of November, lo and behold, look at the very tip-top one right there. Falls account for 36% of the workplace injuries and fatalities in the construction world. And then you have struck-bys, electrocutions, and caught-betweens. Notice this. We're talking about electrocutions right there. We don't have water and drowning and gas and all that. We have electrocutions, which means that we not only deal with a very dangerous energy source, but the construction industry as a whole has an issue with it. Other causes, we got new equipment, changing out old equipment, something like that. Something as simple as a turn signal bulb, right? Something that simple. Also, you know how it is. People take shortcuts. We're getting hurt. We've all done it. I've yet to meet anybody that can sit there and say they have done everything right all the time. We all cut corners occasionally. Just hopefully when Murphy catches up with you that you have done enough right things that it's not going to be that big a deal. So it boils down to this. Your actions lead to your decisions. Those decisions either increase or decrease the risk of something happening. All right? That's why you got to take personal responsibility in this. When you hear slogans from the company like, safety is our number one priority and all that kind of stuff, that's not really necessarily true. All right? The reason being is because if the company said safety is our number one priority, then they wouldn't have you do a dangerous job. Because that's completely the way to keep you completely safe, right? Is don't do the dangerous job. You're completely safe. That's how that works. We all know that there comes that fine line between the safety and getting the job done and doing it right and doing it safe. We all know that. We all know that there are recognized hazards out there that we have to account for and deal with. Now, who's responsible for safety on the job, right? Well, I would hope that you're going to take ownership of yourself. You are a grown adult you might be grown. You might not be an adult, but you might be grown. You got to oversee your own safety. You got to know how important these rules are and how important it is to apply them every day. But out on the job site, you actually have your employer that has a big part in your safety. OSHA mandates that they have to look out for recognized hazards and try to keep you safe from them. Now, notice that little word right there. You could tell that there's some legalese in there. Some lawyers wrote some stuff up. It says from recognized hazards. It didn't say from all hazards, from recognized hazards. Of course, they can't keep you safe from everything. That's not how that works. But they have to look at the job site and see what's out there and try to prevent you from getting injured from those things, all right? Now, that doesn't mean there's no hazards. I can tell you this. Mike Simmons here at JTNS, the head fella, he has a great analogy, and I really like this. When it comes to the employer and keeping you safe on the job and those recognized hazards, he equates it to this. A JHA, a job hazard analysis, is different from a pre-job or a tailgate or a tailboard. The job hazard analysis is like looking out an airplane window. You get that 30,000 foot view. You get the view from the planning of the job, the engineering, the talking to the customers, talking to the state, all that, to building it, to maintaining it, to the meters turning, to 5 or 10 years down the road, to changing out poles and upgrading this. That's what that job hazard analysis is. It's that 30,000 foot view that the employer has. You, of course, as the employee, what you do to keep you safe is you go from that 30,000 foot view, you go down to the microscopic view. You go down there on that pre-job or tailboard. You are out there, boots on the ground, fixing to set a pole, fixing to pull some underground in. That's what you're concerned with right there. You don't have to worry about, oh, do I make sure that I have the appropriate FR rating? Do I, all that stuff has already been laid out, and you know all this. It's already been provided. That's why you have that microscopic view, because you're out there concerned with you and your guys getting the job done safely. So this right here is called the hierarchy of controls. I'll be honest with you. The main two that I concern myself with most of the time is the very top one and the very bottom one. Reason being is because of this right here. So as linemen and all that good stuff we're talking to most of the time, the safest way to work on that power line, let me hear you say it. Anybody out there? I'm waiting for a response. Come on. What's the safest way to work on that power line? I heard it over there in the room. Very good. Great job. De-energize it, right? De-energize it. You remove that hazard. You ain't got to worry about it now. Here's the issue. The reason why we get paid them big bucks, boys and ladies, the reason why we get paid that big bucks is because you can't always kill it out, right? You can't always de-energize it. It used to be you had to keep the hospital on or the nursing homes on. Now it's more of a, you can't let the Google data center or the Facebook data center go out of power or something like that. So you've got to keep the power on sometimes, and that's just the way it is. That's the safest way to do it. Elimination, the top thing you can do in that hierarchy. Second thing, we're talking about substitution. All right. If anybody here has worked out west, raise your hand. See one or two. All right, great, good job. If you've worked out west, you might have noticed that a lot of times you're doing a lot of your work at the end of a stick. I went to the International Rodeo last year, 2021. Went to the International Rodeo last year, and AB Chance had a trailer set up. If you use armor rods out there, anybody use armor rods, raise your hand. If you use armor rods, you know how it is to put those on with rubber gloves on. Imagine backing up 4 or 6 foot and putting an armor rod on at the end of a hot stick. Oh my Lord. You talking about just, it's not easy at all. And then on top of that, if you use armor rods, well, you probably use that number 4 or number 6 aluminum soft drawn tie wire. Back up 4 to 6 foot and put that tie wire on with the hot stick. I'm telling you, it's that proverbial monkey in a football scenario, you know what I'm saying? It is really, really hard, but that keeps you safe. That keeps you out of that minimum approach distance. So that's substitution, you rubber gloving it to using a hot stick. You have engineering controls. So something like, I'm fairly sure that y'all sitting there listening have all heard about mesothelioma, right, and asbestos. Well, essentially nowadays, this is what I like to refer to as mesothelioma 2.0, the latest and greatest version. It's a big thing called silica. All right. If you have any concrete poles, or if you have any poles set in concrete sidewalks or concrete driveways, stuff like that, and you either have to drill or cut in it with a saw or drill in it, something like that, not just concrete, but you're talking about rock and stuff like that. If you're doing that and you stir up that dust, well, in that dust is these little bitty slivers of silica. And essentially you breathe that in, gets into your lungs, your white blood cell go, hey, that ain't supposed to be in here. Your white blood cells start attacking it, forming like a little ball around there to protect your body from it. And now you have all these little nodules inside your lungs, you can't breathe, blah, 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 blah. That kind of bad stuff, right? So what's the safest way to work on that kind of stuff, right? Well, safety guys don't like the respirator thing because you have to be fitted by a doctor and do a stress test and all that kind of stuff. If the dust is the problem, well, how do we prevent dust? It's always that keep it simple, stupid, that KISS method. Apply it to your life. If dust is a problem, add water. Water equals mud. No dust. There we go. So if you're drilling a concrete pole, take your bottle of water, pour it on top of your drill bit as you're drilling. If you're using a wet concrete saw, pour you some water down there to keep that dust from getting stirred up, all right? Administrative controls. So administrative controls, we're talking about things like your pre-job, or if you have any confined spaces, that company policy on confined spaces, the APPA safety manuals, your company policies. All those things right there are put in place to keep you safe from recognized hazards as well. And of course, last but not least, we're talking about PPE. Y'all have heard it 1.5 million to 2.5 to 3 infinity times. PPE. Y'all know it. Y'all love it. Well, you're supposed to love it. Y'all know as well as I do. Y'all sit in here for years and years and listen to this. Use your PPE. Use your hard hats and your gloves and your glasses and your FR. Trust me. Trust me. It is very well worth it when you need it. It takes more. It takes more than just having a safety book or safety rules or a safety man. It takes more. It takes you having responsibility and ownership of that safety culture at your place. All right? You got to make the right decisions based on that priority. Here's how I like to sum this up. I would say everybody sitting here listening to this drove to work this morning. All right? If you drove to work this morning, as you were driving down the road, you looked over on the side of the road and you saw a sign that said 35 or 45 or 55 mile an hour. Here's the thing about it. That's a suggestion. You realize that, right? That is a suggestion. When you look over and you see that 55 mile an hour speed limit, well, technically your vehicle, well, I don't know. I know how some of our vehicles are. Technically your vehicle had the option to doing 60, 65, 70, maybe 100 mile an hour. You had that option coming into work this morning to do 100 mile an hour. But you didn't do that. You might have sped a little bit, but you weighed the risk to the reward. I speed a little bit, I get to work a little sooner, which who wants to get to work sooner anyway, right? But anyway, I digress. You sped a little bit, got in a little sooner so you could drink that cup of coffee, sit around and with the water cooler doing your thing. And you weighed that reward to that risk. If I get caught doing this, it's going to be $137.50 fine or something like that, and points on my record and all this. Did you really weigh the options though? Not really, because at the very back of your head it was, I probably need to consider if I go a little faster and it is wet, my tires ain't that great. So next thing you know, you're sliding off the road, you're hydroplaning, now you're in an accident. Now your car's out of commission. Now you're broke up. Now you're paralyzed. Did you weigh those risks? It's exactly the same thing with these safety rules. All right? I put it this way, and I'm on my way to becoming a safety guy. all these safety rules, all these APPA manuals and the 1926 and the 1910, you could pretty much throw them out the window. Throw them out the window, because all they are is black on white. That's it. Just words written on a paper. They're completely useless. Just like that speed limit sign. It is completely useless. It just has numbers on the sign. That's all it is. The only thing that actually does anything in our business is when you decide to take ownership. And you decide that, hey, you know what? Me working here, I've been here 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I've been here 5 minutes. I'm going to work safe because I see the consequences. I see the risk. I'm going to work safe because I want to go home tonight. You have that option. You have that option every day to work safe or to not work safe. And it's 1,000% on you. All right? So, sorry, I got to get off my high horse there. I got on my soapbox. I apologize about that. I want to thank y'all for listening. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, and want to talk about near misses, want to talk about anything else, please reach out to us. You can find my contact info on the JTNS website. Please feel free to do that, or talk to your local JTNS guy, whoever they might be. Greatly appreciate it. And I hope if you're listening to this before Christmas, have a very, very Merry Christmas and a great and Happy New Year there. Thank you for your time today, and stay safe out there.